Welcome everyone, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to all of those who are here in Chabad of Rechavia and everyone that is attending from afar. And a special welcome to Rabbi Goldberg, who is taking part from Kinus HaShluchim, a special Kinus for all the Shluchim around Israel. And I would like to ask Rabbi Goldberg, please, to begin with words of introduction and to tell us what is this special event that we are having here at Chabad of Rechavia.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Rabbi Diamond, and thank you to Mordechai and Raya for broadcasting the special event. And welcome to everyone who is at Chabad of Rechavia in Yerushalayim right now. As you see behind me, you can see all the shluchim participating in the annual conference of shluchim across Israel. In addition to the fact that there's an international shluchim conference, there's over here also a national shluchim conference. And so there's no way that I'm going to miss this event, at least over here by Zoom. But of course, my heart is with you at Chabad of Rechavia in Yerushalayim. The last few weeks have been very challenging weeks in Yerushalayim, starting from the attack that happened at Chabad of Rechavia exactly 4 weeks ago, when I came in the morning to the minyan at 7:30, just before the minyan of Shachris in the morning, and I saw that something had been sprayed at the window in the entrance to the office of the Chabad Center. I went inside to take my talus and tefillin, and I went in, and then I locked the door, and then in the middle of davening, by mistake, I touched my eye, and there was a very, very strong feeling of burning in one eye and then in the next eye. And Baruch Hashem, in the ambulance and then in the hospital, they were able to take great care, Baruch Hashem, and soon thereafter they allowed me to go home. After that, for several days, there had been attacks from Arabs to frum and observant people in the streets, in the light rail. And in general, it's important to remember that we have to be careful what we do. On one hand, we know that Hashem protects Eretz Yisrael. On the other hand, we have to make sure that we do our best to protect ourselves physically. Therefore, I turned to Boaz and to David. And Boaz has become a great friend over the past few weeks. He guided me in different ideas on how we can find the attacker, and hopefully we're still working on that, and hopefully we'll be able to push the police to do more and more. But at the same time, Boaz was very kind to suggest that he would come with his colleague David, who spent time both in Israel and in Los Angeles, as I'm sure they'll tell you, teaching organizations and people and businesses how to protect themselves, that they shouldn't even come to a situation, God forbid, where it's a dangerous situation. And so hopefully Boaz and David together are going to make a special presentation. But it's important that I mention that they were very, very kind, David and Boaz, not to charge us for this lecture. But Boaz and David run this amazing organization called Otzma. Otzma means strength and power. And by empowering someone even before a negative event can happen, that's even better than patching up the problem after it happens. And so therefore, I turn to all of you to support David and Boaz in their tireless efforts to help people be safe. And it's a great mitzvah what they are doing. I want to mention just one point, that in both of the parshas that we're going to talk about this week, in Parshat Bahar and in Bechukotai, we talk about the safety and specialty of Eretz Yisrael. In Bahar, we talk about the fact that during the mitzvah of Shemitah, that Hashem gives a special bracha, a special blessing to the land of Israel. And in Bechukotai, Hashem says, "V'natati shalom ba'aretz," I will put peace into the land. So we know that Hashem protects Eretz Yisrael, but we have to do our best to protect ourselves on a on a realistic, on a materialistic level, and we are sure that Hashem will protect us spiritually and, of course, materialistically as well. So I want to wish all of you, and especially to David and Boaz, as we're going to finish off the Torah reading this week on this Shabbat, Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek. Be strong, and we will all be strong together. Toda Rabah. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce our dear friends David and Boaz from the amazing Otzma organization.
I can't think of any better words to kick this this little shindig off than Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek. Obviously, we're good. We're good to go. Okay. So as Rabbi Goldberg finished off by saying Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek, I think it's a very appropriate message for us today. Obviously, there's an inyan of chozek, right, of strength involved in the kind of themes that we want to talk about. But more importantly, in the phrase Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek, the last element of that is nit chazek. There's an element of collective, yachad. We are strong because we are strong together. And that's kind of the message we want to talk about today. Boaz and I, we are the representatives of an organization called Otzma. We provide training, consulting to Jewish communities in Israel and around the world. I, for my part, come from a history of being involved in security for Jewish communities in Europe mostly, which is where I come from. And throughout the years, we've had the great privilege of being able to kind of share some of that knowledge with those who need it. And as Rabbi Goldberg pointed out, we have a very specific kind of situation that we're talking about right now in Israel. And it's a good time, an opportune moment to kind of go over the basic steps that you and I, that we can all go through in this period. Because it's much simpler than it may seem. And we'll go into more detail as we move forward. But more importantly, in the context of this organization, we like to speak about how we as a group, we as a collective become stronger together. And I hope that once you come out of this first little introduction piece, you'll understand why we want to bring all of you in as partners to the Otzma organization. And from here, you may become ambassadors and bring that message on to the communities that you belong to, whether it's here in Israel, whether it's Yushluchim in Chutz La'aretz, and we will be very, very happy to include you into this family and accompany you throughout this process. So without further ado, I want to start with something very concrete. I come, from a very, how we say it, hands-on approach to what it is we do here. So I'd like to do a little exercise. Do I have a volunteer tonight to help us out? All right, here we go. What's your name, sir?
Abe.
Abe. Dave. Nice to meet you. Abe, I'm going to give you a knife. And we're going to do a little simulation today. You are going to simulate an attacker, a terrorist, if you will, a terrible person who wants to hurt me, myself, my family, what have you. And I will teach you, in a nutshell, the most important self-defense technique that you will ever learn. It works every time. Abe, would you stand over there, please? Now. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm right here. So Abe, I'd like you to take a few steps back because I want us to be able to prepare this. Self-defense technique. Everyone observe very carefully what it is we're doing here. Abe is going to come at me full force, like you're a rear terrorist, like you want to do harm, and I'm going to execute a martial arts technique that we will all hopefully learn very soon. Are you ready? Abe, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, so when I say go, you go. Are you ready? Go. Bye. Okay. Abe, thank you very much. What just happened? How many of you, raise a hand, how many of you expected me to kick him in the face, punch him, you take him to the ground? Be honest. Nobody? You all saw that one coming?
Yeah.
Why?
Avoid.
Avoid. The best way to prevent harm is to not be there, right? We don't stop bullets, we avoid them. Anyone else? Something else? Some other idea?
Avoid, run, and hide.
Run and hide. Now, run and hide is a very important message, but it's not always the correct one, right? God forbid your family is behind you. You don't have the luxury of running and hiding. Okay? Children, women. What else? What else happened here?
You're always around you.
Thank you. What's your name?
Yaakov.
Yaakov. Thank you very much, Yaakov. I was aware of my surroundings. I don't know if you noticed, right before we started, I was fiddling with the door. It's a little heavy and it was a little hard for me to block it with the chair. And our friend came up to me and says, maybe we should close the door. I said, no, I want the door open. Why? I had already prepared this. I had analyzed my surroundings and I had prepared the field. The same way, hopefully, when you all come out of this today, you will start analyzing your environment as you walk in the streets. The street must no longer be the same before and after your first Otzma seminar. The street from now on is a place that is ripe with danger, but also with opportunity. Okay? So that's really the first message I want you to get from that. There is a video that I would show you. I just want to make sure if it works, and if it doesn't, then we will skip it. Right. Give me for a second. We had some logistical issues starting off today.
I do have a question.
You have a question?
Yes, in your little scenario, what happens if the assailant opens the door and chases you?
All right, how many of you have observed me as an individual? What else do I have on me?
Okay.
Does that answer your question? That's my case.
But most of us don't.
So if he follows, first of all, closing the door, what's the point of closing the door? You've gained a few crucial seconds that will allow you to take an advance. What do once you're outside? Maybe you cry for help. Maybe you find some other object that you will be able to place between yourself and the attacker. A chair, start throwing objects. We can go into this scenario, we can go into it in detail, and you know what? I suggest that we do it again at the end. Okay? Does that work? We'll go over this very same scenario at the end of our seminar and see if you can provide me with the answers to that question. Does that work? All right. So Otzma, like we said, we believe in sustainable security solutions. What does that mean? That means that security is not something that's left to the professionals. Security is something that is our concern every day as individuals and as collectives, as the little groups that we evolve in. Shuls, parents that are involved in the security of their children, in the school institutions that they go to, so on and so forth. The stronger we are individually, the stronger we are in these little groups, the harder targets we become. That is our objective here today, is to become hard targets. Please tell me the internet still works, otherwise we're in trouble. Lesson number 1, your mind is your best defense. We are not going to go into a martial arts training camp here. Your physical attributes are important tools, but before you use them, the most important tool that you have at your disposition is your mind. It's your ability to analyze your environment. What I call our little AAA battery that makes us work throughout the year. AAA, that stands for anticipate, analyze, act. Those are the 3 things that you need to do. When I walk out of this door, I'm playing around with scenarios in my head. That's the anticipation effect. I analyze my environment. We're going to talk about how we do that in a second. And I already have scenarios that will allow me to act decisively if, God forbid, something should happen. יהיה בסדר?
זה הרבה טלפונים.
כן, זה הרבה דברים, אנחנו נוציא את הווי-פיי פה. There's a common misconception. There's a common misconception out there. I have a feeling, בועז, תעשי לי טובה. אם אתה יכול לשבת פה, להפעיל למצגת, אני בינתיים אריץ את זה כי אחרת אנחנו לא נמצאים. תודה רבה. מקסימום תעשה את זה פה. תקפוץ כמה שקופיות קדימה. Alright, there's a common misconception out there that that violence, okay, that violence is a monolithic thing, and that everyone who has, trained in, again, martial arts or has been in the army or whatever is all of a sudden an expert on violence, and they can teach you to fight in a ring and also to defend your community, and they're part of an elite commando unit of the army, and it all goes together. That's like that's a common misnomer. Yeah, I can see you shaking your head there, and you're absolutely right. Violence is something that is part and parcel of our everyday life as human beings. It can express itself, it can be verbal. When I, chas v'shalom, get into a fighting match with my wife, it can be physical, unfortunately. It can be by mutual consent. When I go into a boxing ring and put on the gloves, I'm operating within a structure, within rules. And so, just like other forms of violence, the kind that we're going to speak about today, which is a little bit of terrorism, but mostly what we call spontaneous street violence, they obey to their own rules as well. Once you're able to analyze them, to understand what those rules are, what the modus operandi of the attacker is, then you are better armed to face it. And the other side, flip side of that coin is, if I'm operating under the wrong assumptions, then I'm perhaps even more in danger than what I did. Again, I'll take the example of someone who goes and takes boxing classes once a week, and they know how to do their fists, and as soon as something happens in the street, they, fisticuffs, you're not within the right rule set. You will be taken by surprise by getting a chair smashed on your head or worse. Okay? Understand the rules, understand the methods. Let's go to our friend Jim Carrey. נפעיל את הסרטון מפה. אתה מזהה אותו? אלא אם כן הוא לא פה, שיכול להיות. לא, אוקיי, לא נורא. אז תמשיך לדפדף בזה במצגת. כן, לא, בסדר, זה חבל הזמן. אוקיי, איתי יש לנו מספיק כאלה. נעשה Alt-Tab וחזרנו. And we're back. אוקיי? אין למטה, לך לנו So we spoke about verbal violence. We spoke about verbal violence as opposed to physical violence. Violence, these kinds of events that we're talking about, the stuff that happens in the street, as a rule, they are part of an escalating chain of events, right? Most of the time, the kind of confrontations we're going to be in will have precursors to them. The classic example that we showed in Satimata, when we speak mostly to Chutz La'aretz, is the problem of anti-Semitic violence. Sometimes people are under the assumption that it is out of the blue, out of nowhere, completely spontaneous and unpredictable. This is almost never, ever true. The example we took over here was the attacks in Bondi that happened a few years ago in Australia. I don't know if you remember them. A bunch of Israeli embassy workers were coming home after a Shabbat dinner, and they were attacked in the Bondi neighborhood of Sydney. Okay? And so it took everybody by surprise. The Australians were completely taken aback, and it was a terrible, terrible event, and no one could have seen it coming. But what they didn't realize was that throughout the weeks and months preceding this event, there were numerous cases of swastika tags, graffiti on walls, threats against the community, and so on. And so the game becomes, because it is a game, the game becomes the ability to analyze these little drops of water that at some point will coalesce and become a pond. And I will take you, unfortunately, we speak a lot about anti-Semitism in Chutz La'aretz, like it's a phenomenon of Chutz La'aretz, and that we're preserved from it here in Israel, Baruch Hashem. Unfortunately, in the past few weeks, that's no longer as true as it was, because the cases that we are seeing now, that we see these attacks that are happening in Jerusalem on the Tayelet, near the Old City, and in other areas throughout the country, they are classic Chutz La'aretz type anti-Semitism. People who are identified because they are wearing the traits of Orthodox Jews, become targeted as such. Often the little TikTok videos that go with it and so on, I believe you all know what we're talking about. So these are classic cases of anti-Semitism. So how do we see them coming? First of all, we're aware that this is a phenomenon that is happening. We come to seminars like these, we up our level of awareness. That's the first thing. You're already one step in the right direction. And if you know this is the case, then you start looking at what the specific modes of operation are around this. What do we know about these attacks? Let's talk about this specific example. Does anybody know? What are we talking about? What's the phenomenon? Does anybody have a description for me? If you would.
It seems to build up. I mean,
Okay.
It starts little, and then there's no response, and it gets higher and higher.
Correct. Very correct. How did this whole thing start? A few slaps, right? The guys walking around a video, and I think the first one was a case of someone throwing manure on a Jew, was it? Or throwing something dirty. Then the next step is slapping people who look like rabbis, who have beards and kippot and so on. Expect it to get worse. It's only a question of time before it becomes stabbings or, you know, ganging up on isolated people. So you described it very correctly. So being aware of it at this stage, while it's not as bad, is your first step. And once more and more of us become hard targets, it also takes the fun out of this phenomenon, right? We're talking about in this specific case, these are people who are targeting us because we are soft targets, it's fun, they're putting it up on videos with music and so on. If the chase becomes difficult, if the target is harder to get to, then the reward, the price of the reward they're getting is higher. Okay, so that's something I want you to bear in mind. Again, speaking about this specific phenomenon, if we're going to move along, talk to lone wolf terrorism who are attacking people with knives, it'll be a little bit more difficult to deter. Understood? All right, let's move forward.
Could I just ask?
Please.
A lot of the videos, these terrible videos we see in Crown Heights, is that Jews are just walking the street and out of nowhere, they're attacked by gangs.
It's actually, you're right. What we're seeing now in Israel is a copycat phenomenon of, what was it called? There was a game that was, Knockout, that's the one. A knockout game, right? So that was like a fun game. You come, you knock out someone from behind, and Jews were exceedingly targeted by this compared to other groups, but we're the only ones. So the knockout game, it's a terrible, terrible thing. And hopefully we're going to talk about how we address that. But step one is being aware that this game is out there, right? So we're going to talk a little later about reporting, but I want you to bear this in mind. This is a very, very important concept. The main tool that we have, again, as a community, is our ability to communicate. In your own groups, I want you to think about how you can set up a communication network, whether it's a WhatsApp group for parents for the school, or having someone who's a security referent in your shul, who's the go-to person where you report everything that's going on. Because once we have the information, and we share it with the police, and we share it amongst each other, we are creating a database that allows us to anticipate better, to analyze better, to be more aware. In the case of a specific attack or a specific event that you've seen, again, we're going all along the chain of escalation, from verbal violence and graffiti all the way up to actual acts of physical violence. Being able to report them, who committed it, what they were doing, why, where it happened, and when. Okay? Very simple, very basic. Again, we don't have time today to go into as much detail as I want on everything, so I just want you to bear this in mind. Again, I see graffiti on my shul wall, or someone insults me in the street. That's the first act that we start to report. We talk about, we share it on the WhatsApp group, we talk about to other parents, to other members of the community, and so on and so forth. Clear? Who, what, why, where, and when. Walk around with a little notepad. Take notes of what's going on around you. All right? We're looking at people. Again, these are not just what I report, these are also the things I look at and I observe around me. I'm looking at people. Who are the people around me? Who are the people who are my potential allies? Who are the people I'm with, how we can help each other? And what are the people around me doing that should attract my attention? We're going to talk about why in a second. Weapons. Weapons in the street means two things. It means something that is a potential danger for myself, but it also means something that has a potential tool that I can use in an emergency situation. So from now on, we walk out this door, we are looking at people, and we are looking for weapons. Very simple. Who are the people around me? What are they doing? What are their expressions? And what are the objects that I can use? A weapon is a firearm, a weapon is a knife, but a weapon can be a chair, it can be a table, it can be a bottle of water, it can be a book. We go to shul. You remember the case of the shooting in the shul in Geula 5 years ago? Terrible, terrible attack. What did the community do 5 years ago? I'm sorry. What did they do? Sidurim, chumashim. All right? Pikuach nefesh. Don't worry about what you're throwing. Throw someone at them. If I am a shooter and I'm firing a weapon, I have tunnel vision. I'm concentrated on my target. You want to break that tunnel vision? We're going to talk about it later. Shia? Only he who can see the invisible can do the impossible. What does that mean? It's a great quote by Frank Haynes. Only he who can see the invisible can do the impossible. What does that mean? Most of us, every day when we walk around, we see cues, but we do not recognize them. There are cues to violence, to escalation, that are part of our everyday life, and they are invisible to us. Learn to see the invisible, and hopefully you'll get some of the tools on how to do that, and you will do the impossible. The crazy, martial arts scene from the movie where the guy flips and jumps and kicks, and most of that has to do with the fact that you saw the move coming from the other side in advance. Your ability to read your opponent is truly your greatest weapon. Your mind is your best defense. יכול לדלג פה, אנחנו נלך ישירות לזה. בוא נבדוק אם הסרטון הזה עובד. This is exactly the case you were talking about, by the way. I believe this one was Crown Heights, or it's some other area in New York. It's an example of our knockout game. הוא לא שם, אני חושב. צריך לבדוק אם הוא פועל בתוך הזה, כי אם לא, אז אנחנו גם נדלג עליו. קליק עליו. No? It's not playing. Alright, it's not going to. Works. Never mind. The computer is not helping us today. We're going to work without it. What we saw in this video, alright, what we see in this video in the knockout game is a bunch of guys attacking a religious Jew. They come at him from behind, but they come at him from two sides. And so this young man, who is basically going along his way and is focused on what's in front of him, doesn't have peripheral vision, doesn't see them coming in from the side. He gets jumped, he gets thrown to the ground and pummeled while he's on the ground, and he actually gets up and pursues his attackers. And so there's two things there. Number one is if he had seen the threat coming before, he might have been able to take evasive action and avoided the event altogether, which is what we spoke about. But the other thing is, he didn't lie down and take it. He stood up and fought back. And that's the other important message. In any case, we do not want to be victims. We want to be proactive in the scenarios that involve us. And in this case, it took the guys completely by surprise and they ran away. So, in order to be more proactive, in order to be able to take decisions more rapidly, the game of the game is being able to react under stress. Okay, once threats happen to us, a number of things happen. Who can tell me what happens to our body under stress? Who can tell me what happens to our bodies under stress? What does stress do? What is stress, if you would?
Tightens up.
It does. Do you know why?
Defense.
It's a defense mechanism. Your stress, that's right, starts a defense mechanism. In fact, it's the natural system that starts into place under stress is what we call the fight, all right, flight, or freeze mechanism. Your body will do one of three things, sometimes more than one at a time. Why? Because as nature has instilled us with this animal instinct that when a predator comes towards us, we either prepare to fight back or run away. and in some cases, unfortunately, we freeze. So those are the three systems that get into place. Now, the fight or flight mechanism is actually a very positive one. The rush of adrenaline that you get in that moment will actually help you to perform at a higher level than you would when you go and work out in the gym. So understand that mechanism and how it affects us. There are two ways to not just to go against the fight, flight, freeze mechanism, which sometimes clouds our judgment and makes us do things that are not necessarily in our best interest. But there are a certain number of tools that you can use to channel that energy in your favor. One is learn to train your intuition. Does that sound like an oxymoron, training your intuition, to some of you here? What is intuition?
We think of intuition as a very spontaneous response.
Correct.
But you can, by becoming aware of things, you can spontaneously become aware of what you're
That's very
observing
true.
yourself.
There's a difference between intuition and instinct. All right? Instinct is mechanical. It's automatic. You don't think about it. It happens on its own. Your intuition is something slightly different. Your intuition is a neurological message. It's your brain telling you something. And oftentimes, where do we feel it? In our gut, right? I have a gut feeling. That's your intuition speaking to you. And sometimes, and this is where the freeze mechanism comes in, sometimes our gut feeling will push us in one direction, and our brain will draw us in another. Especially in Western type, civilized societies, where we are taught to rationalize, to lower the pressure, right? Oh, it's not so bad, it's okay. I don't want to get into a fight, I don't want any trouble, right? Your intuition can tell you something's going to happen, something's wrong, but your brain is going to rationalize it away. Your civilized responses are going to pull you in the opposite direction, and oftentimes we freeze. So learning to speak more intimately to your intuition, to ask yourself, hey, listen, why am I feeling this? What's going on? How do I do that? By constantly analyzing my environment, by constantly looking at what's going on. And then every once in a while, that butterfly feeling in your stomach that you maybe don't understand on a normal basis, you can point at something and say, oh, I know why I'm feeling that, because this guy looks funny. Why does he look funny? We'll talk about it in a second, okay? Situational awareness, all right? Being constantly on the lookout and understanding what's going on around you. Again, creating scenarios in your head. I see this person walk. If I go up to Boaz, sorry, that's the lack of situational awareness, by the way, right there. I'm going up to Boaz right now. There's a difference between this and this. That's situational awareness. Analyzing the body language that I am projecting in order to take the right decision. And of course, special tools. We at Otzma, we love our little gadgets and our little tools. We'll be happy to show you some of them later. The kind of things that you walk around with and use on a daily basis that not only allow you in a physical way to defend yourself, but also give you a sense of confidence and security that empower you, hopefully, to be more decisive and proactive in God forbid, a difficult situation. All right, so let's talk a second about situational awareness and proactive response. Has anyone here heard of the OODA loop? The OODA loop is a decision-making chart. All right, it's a decision-making process or analysis of our decision-making process that was developed by the U.S. Air Force, and basically, by Boyd. That's right. Boyd was a colonel in the U.S. Air Force, and he developed what he saw as a way of analyzing how fighter pilots interact, opposing fighter pilots interact when they're fighting each other in the sky. And he came to the conclusion. This is a simplified version of that crazy schematic that we showed you before. Basically, they came to the conclusion that every single human interaction or human decision-making process is based on a loop of observation, orientation, decision, and action. Uda, right? So, to be very simple, I am thirsty, okay? So, I observe, and in my observation I see that there's a bottle of water on the table, okay? I orient, which means basically orientation in this case is categorization of information. So, I get the data from my surroundings. The data tells me, look, there's a bottle here, okay? Orientation, I see that the bottle is full of water, all right? And in my orientation process, I come to the conclusion that water is a liquid that will quench my thirst. I go on to the decision process. I've decided that I will take this bottle of water, pour myself in a cup, and drink it, and then I act on that decision, right? Easy enough concept. Now, where this becomes interesting is the OODA loop, if it is the decision-making process of every human being, it's the process by which I function, but it's also the process by which the person across from me, the opponent, if you will, is working as well. And if I understand that the OODA loop is what brings me from inaction to action, then I can play with that to my benefit. In this case, if someone were to want to prevent me from drinking the water, what would they do?
Remove the water.
Remove the water. Maybe remove the cup. And then I'm faced with a dilemma, and I say, okay, do I drink from the bottle in front of these respectable gentlemen, or do I have to go find a cup somewhere else, right? If you want to mess with me, what do? You reset my OODA. Okay?
But what if there's two choices of drinking fluids? You have water and you have, let's say, Gatorade. Where do you focus yourself?
That's a very good question. The answer to that is, how well did you analyze my OODA loop, right? If you think that I am focused on water, then you will break my OODA on the water. But if my horizon is larger than that, then maybe you want to take away the table, and everything falls down, right? It really depends on what the game is we're playing. That's why, again, we're going to take the example of fighter pilots in the sky, right? This is what they developed it for. I break right, he has to go down, we go to altitude, we arm the missiles, and so on. We're playing this game where each is analyzing the other. The one who controls the tempo is the one who wins, ultimately, in the OODA loop. What does that mean? We spoke about violence, about escalation of violence, from verbal all the way to physical. So let's take a classic example. What is the first step if I am someone who wishes to commit or am in the process of escalating toward an act of violence? What is the first thing I'm going to do? Maybe I'm going to approach you. I might approach you with something as innocent as, do you know what time it is? Do you have a cigarette? Tell me you don't smoke. Tell you what am I going to do? I need my smokes. Do you have a lighter? Can I see what's in your pocket? And I get closer. And it escalates. At some point I'm going to lay my hand on you. Okay? At what point does that stop? In this scenario, I, the attacker, I'm not an attacker yet, but it looks like I'm going to become one, I'm controlling the tempo. I ask a question, you answer, right? I move a step forward, and then you decide, oh, okay, he's moved a step forward, what do I do now? Do I move back? Do I raise my hands? But if you raise your hand, they become more aggressive. You're passive in this process, and you're reacting to what I'm doing. Controlling the tempo and resetting the OODA is about doing exactly the contrary. I have to be proactive. I have to be the one who's leading the dance. So instead of waiting for me to ask you for a cigarette, maybe you walk up to me and say, hey buddy, how's it going? Hey, I was a predator. I was coming to you. What are you talking to me for? I'm all right. Switch it up. Do you guys understand the concept that we're talking about? These can be abstract, but I want you to think about them. Yeah. So I want to give you a very concrete example of resetting the OODA, of controlling the tempo and resetting the OODA. It also relates to what I told you before about firearms, right? Remember I told you that an attacker, in most scenarios, one of the phenomenons that comes with the fight or flight mechanism, in this case fight, is what's called tunnel vision. If I'm going to attack you, I'm focused on you. I don't look at what's going on around me. And so, kal vachomer, if I'm firing a firearm, I'm focused on a target. So if people come from the sides and are throwing things at me, are disturbing me, you're resetting my OODA and preventing me and gaining time, making me reset the OODA process and making me lose time and gain time in your favor. You guys understand that concept? Okay, so let's take a look now. There we go. So here we have the case of a jewel robbery. A bunch of guys are smashing into this jewel shop. And I want you to look at this little lady over here. And they're really focused on what they're doing here. And there she goes. And she gets to work. And it's a little fast, but did you see what happened there? What did we see?
She did not know what's going on, and she just wasn't a stupid bystander. She actually did something.
She did something. That's correct. Now, was she a black belt in karate? Probably not. I would bet my life's earnings that she probably didn't hurt a single one of those guys. I guarantee you that there was no physical damage done to any of these people. But they were focused on a specific mission. They're big, brawny guys with their motorcycle helmets, and they're smashing the thing, and they're concentrating. And in comes a little old lady, a little grandma, who starts smacking them with her handbag. That is the last thing they expected. Now, perhaps if someone bigger and stronger had come in, and maybe they would have reacted differently. Maybe they would have gotten violent. But this took them completely off guard, to the point where they couldn't even get going on their scooter again. They like knocked the scooter over, and you saw the police officer kind of waltzing there. He had no idea what was going on. He was completely out of it. And then bystanders finally, once they were on the floor, they played hero of the day and jumped on and tied them down and so on. These guys were stopped. So again, the message of this video is not that we should all intervene every time something happens. I don't expect anyone here, God forbid, to risk their own lives if the situation doesn't warrant it. There's a appreciation that each of one must have on what are the situations where we can take those risks, where we cannot. That's also a function of the kind of training you have. So I'm not trying to create a group of vigilantes here, God forbid. But I do want you to come away with the idea that in a confrontation between individuals, the ability to create unexpected situations is a life-saving ability. So, sometimes in self-defense, I teach guys that rather than if you're going into a fight, rather than gear up and guard up and get ready, maybe you just want to act a little crazy. People do not know how to react to the unexpected. Why? Because you're resetting their Uno. Okay? The other tool that we need, again, we're speaking about intuition, right? Getting in tune with our intuition, with our gut feelings. Feel, don't think, right? Learn to react in an intuitive way to the events around you. Now, some people think that intuition is just something that's natural, but it can actually be trained. And here we go to Mr. Cooper and his color codes. Cooper is also a U.S. military strategist. He comes from the Marine Corps, and he developed color codes which he used as firearms training exercises. Right? In what are the situations where you draw your firearm, and what are those where you don't? He basically divides all situations in life, or more exactly, all situations in the street, into 4 code categories. He says like this: the most important means of surviving a lethal confrontation is neither the weapon nor the martial skills. The primary tool is the combat mindset. In other words, your mind is your best defense. Right? I didn't make it up. He said it. And he says it like this: we have 4 color codes that affect every single situation in life. All right? The first one is white, which we didn't even write out. Why? Because the only situation in your life where you are white is when you are at home, the doors are locked, the kids are at home, the kids and the wife are at home with you, and you are in a completely safe environment. Okay? I've said it, we can move on, you can forget it. The next color is yellow. All right? In a yellow color code, the attitude that I have when I am in yellow is that I am aware of my surroundings. My eyes are open. I'm scanning my surroundings. I'm constantly looking. If we tie it into the OODA loop, it's the observation and orientation part of the OODA loop, right? I'm looking around and I'm processing this information, right? There are 6 gentlemen in the room with me, along with Boaz and myself. There's a table here. There's one exit here. I didn't ask when I came in if there's another exit. Is there another exit to this room? This is the only way out, unless we go to the first floor and jump out the window. Yeah. Correct? Okay. Constantly analyzing my environment. I would have said there's a window here, but there are bars there. We can't exit that way. Constantly analyzing. How do I enter a place? How do I exit a place? Who are the people around me? That's yellow. The next stage is the orange color, right? Orange means that my level of alertness has gone up in response to an event of some sort. Okay? That means anything as simple as I see something suspicious. All right? We can talk in a second about what something suspicious means, but for you to understand, it's maybe someone comes in through the door. I go orange. My level of alertness goes up, and I focus my attention on whatever event spurred that heightened awareness. Okay? Red. Engaged. What does that mean? That means that at the red stage, I have to do something. I'm not just observing anymore. I've also decided and acted in some way. Typically, red means that you see a weapon or a potential weapon or something that is an active threat. I'm walking on Kirin Yesod. I see someone who has a body language that bothers me. We're going to talk about body language in a second. That's the orange phase, right? Oh, what's going on? What's that body language? I start looking at it more closely. And because I'm looking and analyzing, maybe I see a flash of a knife. Or maybe I see him move, spur forward faster, which is a pre-indicator of attack. At that point, it goes from orange to red, and I have to take an action of some sort. Does that mean I draw my firearm and shoot him? No. But maybe it means I cross the street. Maybe it means I go to Buzz and say, hey, Buzz, you see that guy? All right? There's an action involved here. And this is the main message. We intuitively believe that the moment where we spur into action is when the attack happens, right? So a lot of people will teach you, you're walking in the street, and all of a sudden the guy's with a knife, and oh, okay, you got to block, and you got to defend, you got to... No. The guy with the knife I should have seen 10 meters ago, 3 minutes ago. And so my first action is not the blocking, fighting it. My first action is, oh, here we go, he's over there, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to walk outside. And so we go back to our original scenario. It may not end here because he reset his OODA, and so maybe I'm going to have to play that game again and find some other way to reset his OODA as we move along. But I broke it. I made a decision early on in the process that threw him off. He resets. Maybe if I'm lucky, he goes on somewhere else, or he resets, he reattacks. I got to find some other way to break the process, and so on and so on and so on. So that's red, engaged. Take action. Cross the street, start walking the way. Place something between yourself and the threat. Alert other people. And finally, black was fight. No choice. It's right there. It's in front of me. Probably because of a failure in the chain. I wasn't aware. I didn't properly analyze. I didn't go into orange. I failed to take action when it was red, and now it's on me. I gotta fight. This is a specific seminar. It's a lifetime to learn how to deal a black situation. Our best case scenario, the best thing that we can try to give you is to not get there. Is to observe on yellow, focus on orange, act on red. Never get to black. Okay? Only he who can see the invisible can do the impossible. If I am constantly with my color codes, you will see the invisible. You will all of a sudden gain a perception of the things going on around you that you had no idea you were able to do. And so from this moment forward, from now on, when you walk out this door, I want you to color code every single thing that goes on around you. It's a game. You don't have to be stressed out about it. You don't have to. You might, in the beginning, see threats everywhere, but as you play the game, you sort of mellow out. But play the game. That's yellow. That's orange. That's yellow. That's orange. That's red. Hut across the street. Play the game. All right. So let's talk again. Let's talk a little bit of what we call pre-attack indicators. Pre-attack indicators are those elements of body language that allow me to go from yellow to orange and from orange to red. Why? What is body language? Any idea? Anybody here play poker?
Indicator.
It's an indicator of what?
Decision making.
Yes,
Or intent.
it can be, but more often it's not really an indicator of a decision making. It's more an indicator of feeling, right? So what are the kind of body language that we focus on? The kind of body language that shows stress, right? Aggression, what we call pre-attack indicators. Body language are the subconscious expressions of the feelings that we have. So if you play poker, everyone's always looking for the tell, right? What's the tell? The tell is that movement, that tick that the person cannot prevent, that's showing a rush of adrenaline. Because I have good cards, or because I have bad cards, right? Because I'm bluffing, or because I'm trying not to show how excited I am with the game I have, right? And so what happens, people will have a tell, well, they'll touch their earlobe, or their nose, right, or blink. You know why that happens? Because adrenaline is rushing to their extremities. Why is adrenaline rushing to their extremities? Because they're going into
Bluff mode.
fight or flight. It all comes back to fight or flight. Our animal instincts have identified a situation whereby, we will need to, fight, fly, whatever, and so that creates a rush of adrenaline to our system, stress. An attacker, a person who is going to make the step from being a law-abiding passive or maybe an aggressive citizen, but to make that step towards committing an act of physical violence to someone, there is necessarily stress involved. Unless you are superhumanly trained in the art of subterfuge, that rush of stress will be expressed in some way by your body language. Okay? So if I come here knowing that I'm going to attack someone, I become nervous. Maybe I'll be sweaty. Or completely dried out, rosy cheeks, right? My extremities become cold. You guys ever have a stage fright? You're going to go up and you're talking in front of a bunch of people. Your fingers get a little cold. You got, flutter in your stomach. You don't control your voice the same way. These are all the indicators that you need to be looking for. Now, people can be stressed. People can be sick. People can be all kinds of things. They're not necessarily, as such, indicators that they're going to attack you. But if you're able to piece the puzzle together, then you can play the game and go on in the codes, right? So, indicators of stress. We told you, blood rushing to the extremities. So, touching the nose, touching the earlobes, pumping the fists, right? Getting up on the balls of your feet because blood is rushing to your feet to get ready to fly or fight, but also because you're pumping yourself up to get ready to action, right? A nervous person who's about to attack may be mumbling under their breath, all right? They'll be mumbling under their breath. They might nod a lot. You know why someone nods before they attack? You ever see that? You ever see videos of someone going to attack? They go, yeah, boom. You know why they do that? Moral confirmation, right? They need to confirmation that they're doing the right thing. Yeah, he did. Now who's going to get it? Now, here we go. Boom. All right? Nodding of the head. Grinding of teeth. Blinking. We're going to go, we're going to show you a bunch of examples now. So take a look at some of them. Avoiding eye contact, right? I know I'm going to attack you. I might not be able to look you into the eye before I do it. Chest puff, right? This is our monkey instincts. We get all big before we hit someone. Rocking motion, Again, blood rushing to the extremities, getting ready to spring into action, moving from one side to the next. Now, if he's dominating, don't worry. But if not, averting the face. Two things about averting the face. First of all, it goes back to avoiding eye contact, and also it's a way to look at what's going on around you before attacking. Boxer stance, obviously squaring off before the fight. We spoke about this, clenching or pumping of fists. Thousand-yard stare. Target glance. He's going to go for the gun. He's going to go for your wallet. Sweating. Not in facial white. He's sweating. Or he's feeling the blood rush to his face. And here we go, all in one go. Right? Now the side glance is an important one. Side glance in almost all of the TikTok movies that we've seen, they always come with a side glance before the attack. Huh? There's always a side glance. In this case, for a very obvious reason, right? They're looking at their buddy who's filming it. They're like, oh, you ready? Camera's rolling? Can I? Oh, okay, is it ready? Okay, here we go. Boom. So the side glance takes on a whole other meaning here. Side glance is something that you use when you're looking for your accomplices. It's an amazing tell. If you can see that one coming, you can be ready a few fractions of a second before it happens, and that's the difference between life and death. It's the difference between here when he smacks me or being 2 steps back and making him run after me. It's a huge difference. תראה את הנויו פריאטת אינדיקטורס. אתה רוצה לשחק משחק עכשיו? יאללה, תעשה, הורדתי לו בכוונה, ואז תעשה את זה. בגלל המצלמה?
זה המצלמה הזאת, זה שלך.
אז פה?
עד פה בעצם.
סגור, סגור. Alright, so this was attacked in Rami Levi a few years ago. תחזור אחורה, כי החלק העיקרי הוא ההתחלה. תעשי את הפאוז, ואז... Alright, so I want you to look very, very closely. The important thing is the first half a second of the video. Take a close look. תעשי את play. Oh, there we go. What was that?
Maybe in his face.
Side glance. And then he attacks with a machete. Okay? So this was Rami Levi... Mishuradumim? Rami Levi and Mishuradumim. So we see a number of things happen here. If you want to play it again while I'm talking, well, let's put it back and play it again. You see the attacker do a side glance before he attacks. In this case, he actually had an accomplice with him in the supermarket who chickened out at the last minute and didn't help. All right? But he was looking for his accomplice. He attacks. And what do we see happen? Look at this gentleman here. So play. So one man goes down. The other kind of raised his arm to glance off the blow. He saw something happen and he instinctively raised his arms. Let's see what he does next. He takes the chariot, he takes the agala, and he runs after him. What did he just do?
Made distance also.
Created distance, and he broke the Uda. Apparently this guy wasn't ready for someone to fight back. He thought he was attacking a bunch of old dudes in a supermarket. I'm good, they're going to go down and I'm going to be fine. You didn't expect someone to fight back. Broke his Uda. And eventually there happened to be one of BB's security guards doing his groceries in there, so that person ran after him, drew, shot him dead. That's the story of the Rami Levi attack. So pre-attack indicators, again, in this case it was a clear case of the side glance. It's a fraction of a second, right? It seems impossible to react in that kind of time. But if you're playing the game and you've already focused your attention on that person because you've been looking, there's signs of adrenaline and so on, that side glance tells a world. You're already in a place where you've taken distance, you're ready to move because you've analyzed your situation. Do you understand? That's the difference between being taken completely by surprise at the last minute and preparing. It's kind of like when you drive, right? You know, when you take your drive, have any of you done the Nehiga Monat class here in Israel? You know, once you get a certain number of points off your driver's license, they send you to do a class. And what do they say to you? You know, there's always some guy in the class who goes, oh, but what happens if they jump right in front of me in the car and I didn't have time to pull the brakes and it's not my fault? It's your fault. Why is it your fault? Because you're not supposed to react when they're in front of you when the child running with the ball is in front of you in the street. You should have seen him when you were driving. You should have seen him playing with that ball on the sidewalk 2 minutes ago. And thought to yourself, oh, there's a risk that that ball will roll into the street, so I should slow down now. Right? Same thing with everything else. You're constantly looking around you. And when you're used to living that way, it's not stressful and it's not difficult. It's a game. It's part of your everyday life. Exactly like you have a responsibility when you're behind the wheel of your car. Same thing. תעשה את הנויר pre-attack indicators עכשיו, does it? Alright, here's another little video that gives you some pre-attack indicators. Unfortunately, it's a whole class just to learn about pre-attack indicators, but we do want to give you some of them that you can play. We spoke about this, right? Engaging in conversation. Why is he looking down the train tracks?
See if anyone's coming.
Correct. All right, impose your distance. Your personal distance is your own. Nobody should come this close to you. And there we go.
Watch the head movement.
Yeah,
When he's sitting behind you.
correct.
Now he's coming.
And up, side glance, and the attack comes. Classic, classic, classic. It is surprising. It boggles the mind how often that side glance is the last thing before an attack. You can go over video after video after video. 80%, 90%, I don't know what the statistic is, but it's ridiculous. In cases of hand-to-hand violence, it's amazing how many times it's preceded by a side glance. Now, most people, if they watch that video in one go, or if they are the victim of that event, they say, what was I going to do? He was sitting right beside me. I couldn't see the bottle coming. I'm not a martial artist. What am I supposed to do? The bottle's coming at me. What's the answer?
Before you say it, get up and go.
Why was he there in the first place? Why are you sitting next to this guy, right? I mean, forget the fact he's got his shirt off when he looks like a junkie. Like, let's not judge people, let's not judge a book by its cover, right? His body language, his attitude gave off enough signals that that person should not have been sitting in that chair. Guy walks up and talks to me. You're not talking to me, buddy. Get up, go away. You're not sitting next to me. Most probably this person didn't want to make the other person feel uncomfortable. He sat next to me. If I get up and go away, he's going to feel uncomfortable. I don't want to be that person that makes him feel uncomfortable. Forget that. All right? That's the civilized rationale speaking. We need to put that aside every once in a while. And if I hurt his feelings, tough. Okay? All right. A, what does it stand for? Anticipate. All right? Awareness, anticipation, action. Remember those. This is your AAA battery that powers you throughout your day. Conquer your fear by working your intuition and instill power. That's our motto as Otzma. We help people conquer fear and we instill power. Right? In conquering this fear, in working with your intuition, you become empowered. Chazak, chazak, v'ni chazek, as the Rabbi Goldberg said. All right. So thank you very much. This was a little little precursor. I'm happy to maybe do some Q&A if you guys want to speak about some specific events, if you have questions for us. We hope this was just a first step into the world of Otzma, into the world of empowerment. We're very, very happy to have you now as partners with us in the community. We have, oops, sorry. Yeah, I have to get used to this video thing, right? I'm sorry, everybody. I'm used to working with the people in front of me. You guys are going to have to bear with me.
You actually have about 15 people watching.
Fair enough. But so we're very happy to have you really as partners from here on in. We have many, many, many more advanced sedlaot training that go from the let's call it analytical, like we're doing today, to the physical. We work with a large variety of communities, security institutions, and we are always looking for people who will partner with us in this. Talk to us about, get in touch with us. Talk to us about your communities, about how we can be part of that, of your everyday security on whatever level you're operating in. We'd love to do classes with you, or if you want to participate, financially, help us provide for communities that really don't have the means for our services.
Do you have a website?
We do. We have a website and a link. Are we putting up are we sharing the link for?
No one sent me the link.
Okay. So we'll ask Rabbi Goldberg to share it with everyone. We do have a link where we accept donations for training communities, institutions that can't afford it themselves. But that's it. I leave the floor to you now. I think you had a question.
Yeah, don't you think the time is right? I know you will. This is essential to be taught in schools, to be on the mass media, because we live in a society that's under attack. America, Israel, and to ignore it means that we are weakened, and we're prepared to become victims. Nobody knows what's going on. So thank you.
First of all, it's our pleasure.
אני אתייחס לזה בעברית, אם אין בעיה. בסדר? אחד הדברים הבעיה שיש לנו בכלל, כל תקופה שיש פיגועים זה הוויקנס, החולשות. בשנות ה-90 היו פיגועים בתל אביב, בבתי קפה ואוטובוסים. אם היית נכנס לבתי קפה בתל אביב, היית רואה אנשים שיושבים ולא מרוכזים בשום דבר, רק בקפה שלהם. המון אגו, המון אני ואני, אבל מה שקורה מסביב לא מעניין אותם. ולכן המחבלים גילו שזאת תחושה, הם לא רואים מה קורה מסביב. חלק מהפיגועים בירושלים היו קבוע באותם מקומות. רחוב שרי ישראל, מדרחוב, וגם אוטובוסים. בכל אותם מקומות תמיד היו חולשות. זאת אומרת, בתקופה שיש בעיה, אנחנו יודעים שיש מקומות שאנחנו צריכים יותר לפתוח את העיניים. בתקופה שיש בעיה, אנחנו צריכים לדעת מאיפה הבעיה הזאת מתחילה. אם הבעיה הזאת מתחילה בתוכנו, בזמן שהממשלה, אין ממשלה, לא נכנס לפוליטיקה פה, אבל זה מראה חולשה מסוימת. כבר תקופה ארוכה, בחירות, אלקשן, וכולם רואים את זה. יש כרגע, בעיקר אצל הקהילה המוסלמית פה בירושלים, יש קבוצה מסוימת, קבוצת טרור, שנקראת אל מול ביטון, ואל מול ביטון זה קבוצה שהיא מחזיקה את כל מה שקשור לקודש. הר הבית, מכה, בית לחם, כל המקומות הקדושים שלהם, זה חשוב להם. הם כרגע רוצים להילחם במי שנלחם במקומות הקדושים. מי מזדהים במקומות הקדושים פה? חובשי כיפה וציצית. מי שלא חובש כיפה זה לא מעניין אותם.
זה קבוצה מאורגנת?
זה קבוצה ידועה, זה קבוצה שהבסיס שלה נמצא בלבנון, ככוח פוליטי. נמצא בחמאס, שמפעיל אותה, באיראן, ובירדן. ירדן כרגע נמצאת במאבקים מול ישראל על המקומות הקדושים, כי היא חושבת שישראל הולכת להביא את זה לערב הסעודית. הם הפעילו, ככה זה התחיל, הם הפעילו את האל מול ביטון פה, יש קבוצות של נשים וקבוצות של גברים, צאו לפגוע בכל מי שיש לו זקן, כיפה וציצית. כי הם מסוכנים לנו יותר מאשר אלה שבכלל לא מתחברים לדת.
אז זו נקודה חשובה, דוד, אתה יכול לתרגם את זה?
כן, בהחלט.
David will translate what he just said. It's a very interesting point.
So absolutely. So in speaking, as you said, you're absolutely right that our objective, especially in this time, is to get this message out to as many people as possible. you spoke about children, you spoke about media, and it's absolutely true. Understanding the period that we live in. Back when terrorist attacks were more of a commonality in Israeli life, we realized that the way that they developed were that terrorism or terrorist organizations became aware that the individualistic, self-absorbed way of life that characterizes most Israelis, like most Western society, was ripe for attacks. And so when people are sitting with their groups, looking into their coffee, their space, their comfort, their so on, they're no longer aware of what's going on. And that was a weakness within Israeli society that perhaps wasn't as clear or evident as it had been in the past. And so we saw that bombings and attacks would happen in the same kind of neighborhoods, in the same kind of areas, targeting the same kind of people. And it took a while for Israelis in the streets to develop once again those mechanisms, those intuitions, those reactions that became mode of survival on a daily basis. And again, we see this now with this organization that had so the Al Biton organization, which is an organization that comes out of the Muslim Brotherhood, and that is aimed at protecting the holy places of Islam, right? Protecting that is their goal, right? To protect the holy places of Islam. And who is a threat for the holy places of Islam today? Well, at least the ones that are in Israel, it's the religious community. They're not worried about Chilunim who live in Tel Aviv. The people who are coming to the Temple Mount are people who wear kippot and have a beard and have tzitzit. And so the orders, the marching orders that are coming out of that radical movement towards their followers in Israel today is attack people who are identifiable as religious Jews.
And that is the reason, that's why the Chabad store here was sprayed and other stores no. This is the first store. It's Chabad, it's religion. It's religion.
So, again, violence isn't always religious, and contrary to what people think, not everything in the Holy Land is always about religion. But here you have a clear case. You have a clear case where the motivation is religious, and therefore, the outward manifestation of this specific spree of violence is religious. So it's something to be aware of and to understand. And again, getting that message out and allowing more people who are aware of it, the more, these are easy tools. These are easy tools to implement and apply, and they don't require you to be Superman.
I think it should be on the news every day, defense tip of
the day.
And it's just become part of our society. Because
it's a great idea, it's not going to happen.
Huh?
It will not happen.
Because it's not politically correct.
Right, well.
But that's what's really needed.
By the way, I don't think there's anything politically incorrect about what we do.
Of course not.
I firmly and strongly believe this. I have, again, neither Boaz nor myself are political activists, and it's not a question. It's about understanding what the facts are, analyzing them, and by the way, some of our more xenophobic instincts can be detrimental to us as well, because sometimes we focus our attention on the wrong thing when it's not really a threat. So again, but calling something for what it is, and understanding it, and analyzing it, and reacting in appropriately. Anybody else?
Kind of along the same lines, but you say there's hard targets and soft targets.
Yes.
And we see the soft targets, and I follow just about everything that you said. But I walk all the time, and I see those soft targets, and it's very frustrating to see them. Can you talk a little bit about what you can do in that situation? Because you see somebody that's in danger because they're walking with their head down, and they're that soft target, and I want to pull my hair out of my head, but I don't have any black.
Okay. Welcome to my world.
First of all, it's body language. How you walk? How are you walking in the street?
Right, how I walk and how they walk.
This is a soft target.
Yeah.
If you're walking with the
earphones,
we did soft target.
Yes, we did forget to mention that. Walking around with your phone is, by the way, if I catch any of you like this walking in the street from now on, if I catch any of you in the street like this walking, I swear to God, you're gonna get it. You're in trouble. That's a big no-no now from now on. Okay? First of all, because you can get run over by a car. Also because you're not aware of your environmental analysis. It's exactly the case that you're talking about, right? If I need to text, I need to text in the street sometimes. What do I do? What do I do? It's not your question, but I'm using it to get a message. What do I do if I need to text in the street? Okay, I'm not allowed to text. It's not a
Go to the corner or...
Yes.
Right.
Find a corner, you find a place, put your back to a wall, no surprises from behind. Okay? You write your text, you look up every once in a while if it's a long text. Just press send, and you go about your way. Okay? None of this texting while walking stuff. Please, 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 please pass that message on to your children and your grandchildren. Because it's one of the greatest curses of their generation is that they live with their face in their screen. And they are completely disconnected to what's going on around them. By the way, you're paying a social price for that as well, right? Basic human interaction is disappearing as we know it. So please, translate. To answer your question, what should you do about people that you see and the frustration that builds up with you about that? Unfortunately, you can't start going up to people and say, hey, Yid, lift your head, look around. I don't have an answer for that. My answer for you is raise that awareness towards the people that are in your community, those that are close to you. Bring whatever, or talk yourself to the people that are in your circle. Your family, your friends, your school, your children's school, your shul, your Friday night, your Thursday night bridge club, whatever it is. Bring that message to them, because they're the people whose lives you can really impact.
Yeah. How at risk are we at the ATMs? I always feel it's a risk.
We got a couple of great ATM videos over here. Now, they have more to do with robbery than terrorism, right? So different mode of operation. The answer is, when you're at an ATM, you need to heighten your awareness because you are a target. You are, by definition, a target. You're identified as someone who's taking out money. That means you need to be looking around. That means that this completely unimaginable habit that Israelis have, that unimaginable for us who grew up abroad, where the Israelis kind of walking over your shoulder because they're in a hurry, like, can I help you? None of that. You impose your personal space. No one should be more than, especially in Corona times, no one should be less than a meter from you. Okay? You look up. I typically, when I do my code, I am not doing my code. I'm doing my code like this. I never, ever, ever have my back to whatever's going on in the ATM. And if someone comes up to me, מה, יש לך בעיה? לא, אין לי בעיה, קח צד אחורה בבקשה. זה. So yes, ATM is something to watch out for.
You need to use your voice. First of all, base to remember what we've taught you today. You need a routine. Routine means that when you wake up in the morning, when you get to shul, you have to do something that will remind you all the things we've done. The Cooper code, the OODA loop, and how do you do it? You need something. So, my personal, I have an elevator in my house. When I open the door, every day I look at to the right, look at to the left. Okay, now I wake up. And all in my mind, if somebody's going to touch me, I'm going to die. So it's not just touch like this, but I know what I mean. So I wake.
I'm always aware.
Always aware.
Always aware. Believe me, you don't want to touch the wall.
Okay, great.
Gentlemen, all of you know. Thank you very much for your time.
Perfect.
Thank you so very much.
So thank you very, very much.
The kids.